The craziest part wasn't losing the bet. It was realizing my best friend had been choosing me long before either of us called it a game. If you had asked me a month ago what it was like to be best friends with the most popular guy on campus, I would have said it was like owning front row seats to the greatest show on earth without ever stepping onto the stage. Noah Carter was the kind of person professors remembered after one class, freshmen whispered about during orientation, and seniors insisted would end up on the cover of some business magazine before he turned 30. He wasn't just good looking. He was annoyingly good at everything. Basketball captain, honor student, volunteer tutor. The guy who somehow remembered the barista's name and still held the library door open for strangers carrying stacks of books. Meanwhile, I was Ethan Brooks, graphic design major, professional overthinker, and the human equivalent of the skip intro button. I wasn't invisible exactly. More like comfortably overlooked. I liked it that way. At least, I told myself I did. Being Noah's best friend came with perks. Free pizza, because people insisted on buying him lunch. Better seats at football games because someone always saved him a spot. Occasionally getting mistaken for someone interesting simply because I happened to be standing next to him. But it also came with one unavoidable downside. Everyone assumed they knew him better than I did. They didn't. They saw Campus King Noah. I saw the guy who forgot to charge his phone every night, laughed so hard milk came out of his nose once during sophomore year, and cried when his childhood golden retriever passed away. The world got the highlight reel. I got the bloopers. That was enough for me. Or at least I thought it was. Everything changed on a rainy Friday night, when 6 of us crowded into Tyler's apartment after midterms. Someone ordered way too many chicken wings. Someone else connected an old game console to the TV. The competition escalated the way it always did, fueled by cheap soda, loud music, and wounded pride. Loser takes a dare, Tyler announced. No backing out. That sounds legally suspicious, I muttered, grabbing another slice of pepperoni pizza. Noah laughed beside me. Relax, Ethan. You're terrible at this game anyway. Wow. Incredible support from my so-called best friend. I support your confidence, not your reflexes. He wasn't wrong. 20 minutes later, my digital race car slammed into a wall for what felt like the 50th time. My controller vibrated. Giant red letters flashed across the screen. Last place. Everyone erupted into cheers that sounded suspiciously like they'd been waiting years for this exact moment. I groaned dramatically and collapsed backward onto the couch. Fine, I sighed. What's the dare? Tyler rubbed his hands together like a cartoon villain. Actually, Noah should pick. The room instantly went quiet. Noah blinked. Me? You're his best friend? Tyler said with a grin. Make it count. Noah looked at me for a second longer than necessary. There was something oddly thoughtful in his expression, almost like he'd already imagined this moment before tonight. Then the corner of his mouth lifted into the smallest smile. Simple, he said. For the next 30 days? He paused just long enough for everyone to lean forward. I get to choose Ethan whenever I want. Silence. Then confused laughter filled the apartment. Choose him, someone repeated. Noah nodded casually, like it was the most normal sentence in the English language. Group projects, lunch tables, study partners, campus events. If there's a choice, his blue eyes settled on mine with a calm confidence that somehow made my heart stumble. I'm choosing Ethan. The next Monday, I convinced myself Noah would forget the whole thing before our first class. That seemed like the most logical outcome because normal people did not actually follow through on ridiculous dares made over cold pizza and racing games. Noah Carter, unfortunately, had never been accused of being normal. I was halfway across the student union with a breakfast burrito in one hand and my backpack hanging off one shoulder when I heard his voice. Ethan. I turned just in time to see him weaving through the crowd with the confidence of someone who never had to wonder where he belonged. 3 girls who had clearly been trying to get his attention looked mildly offended when he walked right past them. He stopped in front of me, smiled like this was the easiest decision in the world, and took the empty seat across from mine before I could say anything. Good morning, he said. You are late. I blinked. I am 3 minutes early. Exactly. You are usually 15 minutes early. I hated that he noticed things like that. Well, congratulations on remembering my habits. Do I get a trophy? No. He reached over and stole one of my hash browns without asking. You get breakfast with me. I narrowed my eyes. Is this the dare? It is my first choice. Somehow that sounded different. Before I could figure out why, Tyler appeared carrying a tray. He looked from Noah to me and burst into laughter. He actually started already? Noah nodded calmly. Of course. Tyler pointed at me. Good luck surviving the month. Then he walked away still laughing. I looked around the cafeteria and suddenly realized people were staring. Not in a dramatic movie kind of way, just enough to make the back of my neck warm. Noah ignored every curious glance like none of them mattered. He kept talking about our upcoming design history exam, asking if I had finished the reading, reminding me to submit my scholarship paperwork before Friday. It felt strangely ordinary, which somehow made it even weirder. The pattern continued all week. Tuesday morning, Professor Collins announced we could choose partners for our branding project. Before I even reached for my notebook, Noah raised his hand. Ethan is with me. Professor Collins smiled. Already decided? Yes. Noah answered so quickly it sounded rehearsed. Wednesday afternoon, our intramural volleyball team needed someone to fill an empty spot. Noah looked around the gym for less than 2 seconds before pointing at me. I choose Ethan. I cannot even serve the ball correctly, I protested. You will learn. That sounds suspiciously optimistic. I have seen you assemble furniture without reading instructions. Compared to that, volleyball is simple. I laughed despite myself. Thursday became even stranger. Every empty chair beside Noah somehow remained empty until I arrived. Every group discussion somehow included me. Every invitation somehow ended with him saying, Ethan is coming too. It was like the entire campus had accepted an invisible rule that wherever Noah went, I was supposed to be there. The whispers grew louder with each passing day. I caught people smiling as we walked across the quad together. Someone from the student newspaper actually took a picture of us outside the library. A sophomore stopped Noah to ask if we were organizing some campus event together. Noah simply answered, no. I just wanted to spend time with my best friend. He said it so naturally that nobody questioned it. I did. Because somewhere between breakfast, study sessions, and borrowed hoodies after an unexpected rain shower, I realized something deeply unsettling. The dare had not made Noah act differently. It had only made me notice how often he had quietly been choosing me all along. By the second week, I discovered there was one thing more powerful than a college rumor. It was a college rumor with photographic evidence. I found out the hard way when Tyler nearly choked on his coffee laughing at his phone. Congratulations, he managed between wheezes. You are famous now. Unless somebody finally recognized my incredible ability to microwave instant noodles without reading the instructions, I doubt it. He shoved the screen toward me anyway. The campus social media page had uploaded a collection of photos from the previous week. Students studying on the lawn. The marching band practicing. A golden retriever visiting during therapy dog day. Then there was picture number 6. Noah and me sitting outside the library beneath a maple tree. He was leaning toward me with that easy smile he only wore around people he trusted. I was laughing at something he had just said, completely unaware a camera had captured the moment. The caption read, "Some campus partnerships are undefeated." There were already hundreds of comments. Most of them were harmless. Some were hilarious. A surprising number simply asked, "Who is the guy with Noah?" I pointed dramatically at my own face. "I have a name." Tyler grinned. "Apparently not anymore." I groaned and buried my face in my hands. "Can I transfer schools?" Too late. He refreshed the page. Someone already made an edit. An edit? With background music. I hate this generation. Unfortunately, the internet refused to let the story die. Everywhere we went, people smiled a little too knowingly. A girl from my typography class asked if Noah and I had become inseparable because of some secret fraternity challenge. A sophomore stopped us outside the student bookstore just to say we looked like we had known each other forever. Noah simply thanked him and kept walking as if nothing unusual had happened. I hurried beside him, keeping my baseball cap pulled lower than usual. "Does none of this bother you?" I asked. "What part?" "The entire campus acting like we are a documentary series." He shrugged. "People get bored. You are telling me this while half the student center is watching us buy smoothies." Noah glanced around casually. "Only about a quarter. That is somehow worse." He laughed, and I hated how easily that sound dissolved my frustration. Friday afternoon brought the annual student activities fair. Clubs covered the main quad with colorful tents. Music drifted through the warm September air, and somebody had somehow convinced a baby goat to wear the university mascot bandana. I was distracted by the goat because, honestly, Who would not be, when the debate club president called out to Noah. Carter, he waved us over. We need one more judge for the freshman speaking contest. Pick somebody. Without hesitating for even a heartbeat, Noah answered. Ethan. He is not even in debate, the president replied. He is observant, patient, and honest. Noah looked at me with complete certainty. He will be great. Before I could invent an excuse, I was handed a clipboard and escorted toward the judging table. The afternoon flew by faster than I expected, and somewhere between nervous speeches and enthusiastic freshmen, I realized I was actually having fun. As we walked back across campus under strings of glowing lights, I bumped Noah lightly with my shoulder. You know, I almost said no. I know. Then why choose me? He smiled toward the path ahead instead of looking at me. Because I knew you would surprise yourself. His answer settled somewhere deep inside my chest, warm and impossibly difficult to ignore, and for the first time since all of this had started, I wondered if everyone else was noticing something that I had been too afraid to see. By the time the fourth week rolled around, the campus had quietly accepted something that I was still trying to deny. If Noah Carter walked into a room, people automatically looked around for me. It was oddly flattering and deeply embarrassing at the exact same time. I could not even buy a bottle of water without somebody asking, "Where is Noah?" I finally understood what it felt like to become the supporting character in someone else's very successful television series. The strange part was that I no longer minded being around him. Somewhere between shared breakfasts, late afternoon study sessions, and terrible cafeteria desserts that Noah insisted tasted better than they actually did, being together had become effortless. That realization scared me far more than the rumors ever had. Then the calendar reminded me of something important. 30 days. The dare was almost over. I stared at the date on my phone while waiting outside our economics lecture and felt an unexpected knot tighten in my stomach. This should have been good news. Everything would go back to normal. Noah would stop deliberately choosing me. People would lose interest, and my life would return to its comfortably forgettable routine. So why did that thought feel strangely disappointing? You look like somebody canceled your favorite television show, Noah said as he walked up beside me carrying 2 iced coffees. He handed one to me without asking what I wanted because, annoyingly, he already knew. Thank you, I muttered. You are welcome. We started walking toward class together. After a few quiet steps, I cleared my throat. The month is almost over. It is. So, I guess everything goes back to normal after tomorrow. Noah did not answer immediately. Instead, he watched a group of freshmen struggling to carry a stack of folding chairs across the quad before jogging over to help them. Of course he did. He was gone for less than a minute, smiling as always when he returned. Where were we? He asked. The dare, I reminded him. Right. His expression softened, but it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. You sound relieved. I forced a laugh that came out far less convincing than I intended. Should I not be? I do not know. He opened the classroom door for me. Should you? That question stayed with me through the entire lecture. Later that afternoon, Tyler found me alone in the design studio working on a branding assignment. He leaned against my desk with the expression of someone preparing to enjoy himself at my expense. Big day tomorrow. Please do not remind me. You are actually going to miss it, are you not? I nearly dropped my stylus. Miss what? Being chosen. I scoffed much louder than necessary. Absolutely not. Tyler folded his arms. Interesting. What is interesting? You answered before I finished asking. I stared at him. He grinned like a man who had just solved an easy puzzle. You have spent years pretending Noah is just your best friend. Because he is. Sure. Tyler nodded slowly. Keep telling yourself that. Before I could defend myself, he walked away laughing under his breath. That evening, I packed my laptop into my backpack and stepped outside the design building just as the sun dipped below the football stadium. The campus glowed in soft gold and amber, students drifting between classes and residence halls beneath strings of lights that had recently been hung for the upcoming fall festival. My phone buzzed. One new message from Noah. Meet me at the fountain in 10 minutes. I have already decided who I am choosing tomorrow. I stared at the screen for several long seconds, and for reasons I could not explain, my heart forgot how to keep a steady rhythm. The fountain at the center of campus had always been one of my favorite places after sunset. Water shimmered beneath warm lights. Students drifted past with backpacks slung over their shoulders, and somebody nearby was playing an acoustic guitar badly enough to make everyone appreciate recorded music. Noah was already waiting when I arrived, sitting on the stone edge with 2 paper cups of hot chocolate balanced beside him. "You remembered," he said with a smile. "You texted me 10 minutes ago." "Fair point." He handed me one of the cups. "It is getting colder." We stood there quietly for a while, watching the water ripple beneath the lights. It should have felt awkward, but silence with Noah had never been uncomfortable. Somehow he made quiet conversations feel just as complete as loud ones. Finally, I cleared my throat. "So, who are you choosing tomorrow?" He looked at me instead of answering. "Why do you care?" "Because I would like to know when my freedom officially returns." "Freedom?" His eyebrows lifted. "You make it sound like I kidnapped you." "Emotionally, maybe." He laughed, shaking his head. "You are dramatic. Graphic design majors survive on drama." I thought it was coffee. "Both." Another comfortable silence settled between us before Noah spoke again, this time more softly. "Tomorrow is the last day of the dare." "Exactly. But I never promised it would be the last day I chose you." I blinked. "What?" Before I could ask anything else, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned almost imperceptibly, then slipped it back into his pocket. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yes." He smiled again, although it looked just a little forced this time. "Just basketball team stuff." I wanted to believe him. I really did. The next morning, the entire campus seemed unusually alive. The annual fall festival had transformed the main quad into a maze of colorful booths, food trucks, student performances, and club activities. Music floated through the crisp air, while the smell of cinnamon donuts and kettle corn followed everyone wherever they walked. Tyler spotted me almost immediately. "Today is the big finale," he announced dramatically. "Please do not narrate my life." "Too late." He pointed toward the student center. "Your celebrity best friend has fans waiting." Sure enough, Noah was surrounded by students asking questions about the upcoming basketball season. The strange thing was that every few seconds his eyes drifted across the crowd until they landed on me. Each time they did, his shoulders seemed to relax. I pretended not to notice. Around noon, I escaped the noise and wandered toward the art exhibit behind the humanities building. That was where I met Liam Foster. "You are Ethan, right?" he asked with an easy smile. He was tall, friendly, and wore a camera around his neck instead of headphones like everyone else. "I saw your poster designs at the student gallery last semester. They were incredible." I stared for a second. Compliments from strangers always felt like spam emails. "Thank you. That is really nice of you." "I am transferring here this semester," Liam continued. "I was actually hoping you might show me around campus sometime." Before I could answer, another familiar voice appeared behind me. "Ethan." Noah stepped between us so naturally that it almost looked accidental. "Almost." "There you are," he said. "The volunteer coordinator has been looking for you." I frowned. "I volunteered." "You did now." Liam looked from Noah to me with an amused expression. "Am I interrupting something?" "No," I answered quickly. "Yes," Noah said at the exact same time. We both froze. Noah smiled politely at Liam, but something unreadable flickered behind his blue eyes. "Sorry," he said. "I need to borrow Ethan for a while." Then, without waiting for another response, he lightly caught my wrist and guided me back toward the festival. As we disappeared into the crowd, I glanced over my shoulder. Liam was still standing there, watching us with a puzzled smile, while I could not stop wondering why Noah suddenly seemed determined to keep me from talking to anyone else. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur, but my brain refused to leave that moment behind. Noah had interrupted the conversation so smoothly that anyone else would have thought he was simply looking for his best friend. The problem was that I knew him too well. That tiny pause before he smiled, the slight tension in his jaw, the way he kept glancing over his shoulder as if making sure Liam was no longer following us. Those were tells. Noah only had a handful of them, and after 8 years of friendship, I had memorized every single one. "You have been unusually quiet," Noah said as we carried folding chairs back to the student activities office after volunteering at the festival. "I am conserving energy." "For what?" "Thinking." "That sounds dangerous." I laughed despite myself. "See? That right there." He frowned. "What?" "You keep making me laugh when I am trying to be suspicious of you." "Suspicious?" He tilted his head innocently enough to deserve an award. "What exactly have I done?" I stopped walking. "You practically dragged me away from Liam." Dragged is an exaggeration. You literally took my wrist. Lightly. That is not helping your case. Noah looked at me for a long second before quietly saying, I just needed you. The answer caught me completely off guard. Before I could ask what he meant, Tyler jogged toward us carrying 2 boxes of decorations. Perfect timing, he called out. Noah, Coach wants you at the gym. Ethan, can you help me unload these? Noah hesitated. His eyes lingered on me as though he wanted to say something else. Instead, he simply nodded. I will see you later. As soon as he disappeared around the corner, Tyler let out the kind of theatrical sigh usually reserved for soap operas. He is hopeless. Who? I asked. Noah. I laughed. That is a new one. Tyler did not laugh back. Do you seriously not know? My stomach tightened. Know what? He set the boxes down on a nearby bench. The dare. What about it? You still think he came up with it on the spot? Did he not? Tyler stared at me with an expression usually directed toward people who forgot how doors worked. Ethan, Noah practiced that racing game for almost 2 weeks. I blinked. That makes no sense. He was already better than all of us. Exactly. Tyler folded his arms. He wanted to make sure he could lose to exactly one person. Lose? You. I felt the air leave my lungs. No, yes. That is ridiculous. Is it? Tyler reached into his backpack and pulled out his phone. After scrolling for a few seconds, he handed it to me. It was our group chat from nearly 3 weeks before the game night. One message from Noah caught my attention immediately. If Ethan loses, nobody else picks the dare. Let me handle it. Another message followed. Trust me, I have an idea. My fingers suddenly felt too cold to hold the phone. He planned this. Tyler nodded. Every bit of it. But why? That, Tyler said gently, is the question we have all been waiting for you to ask. He picked up the boxes again and walked toward the activities office, leaving me frozen beside the bench. I looked across the quad toward the basketball arena where Noah had disappeared only minutes earlier. Memories I had never questioned began rearranging themselves inside my head. Every breakfast, every empty chair beside him, every group project, every invitation, every time he had looked at me first before looking at anyone else. None of it had been random. None of it had been because of a game. The dare had not created those moments. It had only given Noah permission to stop hiding them, and for the first time since all of this had begun, I was no longer wondering why he kept choosing me. I was wondering how long he had wanted to. 8 years of friendship should have made confronting Noah easy. Instead, it felt like trying to solve a puzzle after somebody quietly replaced half the pieces. I spent the rest of the afternoon wandering across campus without remembering where I had been. The library, the bookstore, the coffee shop. My feet apparently had excellent navigation skills because my brain had completely checked out. One sentence kept replaying in my head. He planned it. Not the dare. Not the month. The choosing. My phone buzzed 3 times. Noah, where are you? A few minutes later. Coach let us out early. Then another. Everything okay? I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Normally I would have answered immediately. Today I slipped the phone back into my pocket instead. Around sunset, I found myself sitting on the empty bleachers overlooking the soccer field. The air carried the familiar scent of freshly cut grass, and the stadium lights hummed softly against the darkening sky. It had always been one of the quietest places on campus. Apparently Noah knew that too. I figured you might be here, he said gently. I looked up to find him standing a few rows below me, hands tucked into the pockets of his gray hoodie. His hair was still slightly messy from basketball practice, and for the first time in weeks he looked uncertain. You ignored my messages. I needed to think. He nodded slowly. Can I sit? I shrugged. It is a free country. He climbed the steps and settled beside me, leaving enough space that our shoulders did not touch. The silence stretched between us. Usually it felt comfortable. Tonight it felt fragile. Finally, I turned toward him. You lied to me. His expression tightened. Tyler told you. So it is true. He did not answer right away. He simply looked out across the empty field before quietly saying, yes. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You planned the entire thing. I planned the dare. You practiced losing. Yes. You convinced everyone to let you decide. Yes. Every answer landed with frustrating honesty. Why? I asked again, this time louder than I intended. Why would you manipulate me like that? Noah closed his eyes for a brief moment. Because I did not know what else to do. You could have talked to me. About what? His voice remained calm, but I heard something crack beneath the surface. About the fact that you wanted to spend time with me? I threw my hands into the air. We already spend time together. We have been best friends since middle school. Exactly. He finally looked at me, and there was no teasing smile this time. Best friends. Those two words sounded heavier than they ever had before. I was terrified that if I asked for anything more than that, I would lose you completely. I stared at him, unable to respond. He continued before I could interrupt. The dare gave me an excuse. It let me choose you without making you uncomfortable. If you hated it, I could always blame the game. So, I was an experiment. No, his answer came instantly. You were the only person I wanted to choose. The evening breeze swept across the empty field, carrying distant laughter from the festival. Neither of us spoke for several long seconds. I wanted to stay angry. It would have been simpler. Anger was easy. What made everything impossible was the look on Noah's face. He was not defending himself because he thought he had done the right thing. He was defending himself because he thought this conversation might be the one that finally made me walk away, and somehow that hurt almost as much as discovering the truth. Neither of us moved. The stadium lights painted pale stripes across the empty field while the evening settled quietly around us, as if the entire campus had decided to give us a few borrowed minutes away from everyone else. I stared at my hands because looking at Noah felt far too dangerous. If I looked at him, I might believe him too easily. If I did not look at him, I could still pretend this conversation was not changing everything I thought I understood about the last 8 years of my life. Noah broke the silence first. Do you remember freshman orientation? I frowned. Of course. You got lost trying to find the art building. I let out a quiet laugh despite myself. The campus map was upside down. It was not. It absolutely was. A small smile finally appeared on his face. You insisted you knew where you were going, then somehow ended up behind the chemistry building. In my defense, every brick building looks exactly the same during orientation week. Noah nodded. I had basketball practice that morning. I remember. I skipped half of it because I saw you wandering around with 3 different maps. I looked up at him in surprise. You skipped practice? Coach yelled at me for 20 minutes afterward. Why would you do that? His answer came quietly. Because I wanted to make sure you found your classroom. Before I could process that memory, another one surfaced on its own. Sophomore year. Registration day. I had somehow ended up in 2 classes that overlapped by 15 minutes. I remembered panicking in the advising office until the schedule magically worked itself out a few hours later. That was you too, I whispered. Noah nodded once. I asked Professor Collins if he would open another design section. He owed my mother a favor. I blinked. You never told me. You looked relieved when your schedule changed. He smiled faintly. That was enough. More memories followed, each one arriving faster than the last. The internship fair where Noah had insisted on walking me to every company booth before visiting the athletic recruiters himself. The winter storm when he drove 45 minutes through heavy snow just to bring me my forgotten laptop charger because my final project was due the next morning. The countless little decisions that had always seemed random, thoughtful, ordinary. They were not random at all. They had all pointed in exactly the same direction. You have always been choosing me, I said softly. Noah looked down at the concrete steps beneath us. I did not think you noticed. I did not. My voice cracked with a laugh that sounded more emotional than amused. I thought you were just... Noah, what does that mean? Kind. Reliable. The guy who takes care of everyone. I shook my head slowly. I never realized you were taking care of me differently. He drew in a careful breath before finally meeting my eyes again. Because I never wanted you to feel pressured. His voice remained steady, but I could hear years of restraint behind every word. I was happy just being your best friend if that was all I was ever allowed to be. I promised myself I would never ask for more if asking meant losing what we already had. The honesty in his expression left no room for doubt. There were no rehearsed speeches, no dramatic gestures, no perfect movie moment. Just Noah, looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen him, trusting me with a truth he had apparently carried alone for years. My heart felt impossibly full and impossibly confused at the same time, because somewhere between all those forgotten memories and quiet acts of care, I had stopped wondering whether Noah had fallen for me. The question that frightened me now was much simpler. When had I started falling for him too? The following Saturday, the entire campus gathered for the closing ceremony of the fall festival, And for the first time in my life, I wished I could become invisible for just 10 minutes. A stage had been built in the center of the quad, strings of warm lights stretched overhead, and hundreds of students filled the lawn with blankets, folding chairs, and paper cups of hot cider. Tyler found me near the back of the crowd and handed me a cinnamon donut. "You look nervous," he said. "I have a bad feeling." "No," he corrected with a grin. "You have a good feeling that is wearing a fake mustache." Before I could argue, the student council president stepped onto the stage with a microphone. Awards were handed out one after another until only the final recognition remained. "And now," she announced, "please welcome this year's campus king, Noah Carter." The applause was immediate. Noah walked onto the stage with the same calm smile I had seen 1,000 times before, but when his eyes swept across the audience, they found mine almost instantly. My heartbeat betrayed me. After thanking his teammates, professors, friends, and family, the president spoke again. "As part of our tradition, Campus King may invite one student on stage to share this moment." The crowd immediately began shouting suggestions. A few students called the names of cheerleaders. Others yelled for basketball teammates. Someone even shouted Liam's name as a joke. Noah laughed softly, accepted the microphone, and looked out across the sea of faces. "I know everyone expects me to choose someone popular," he said. "But the truth is, the most important person on this campus has never been the loudest voice in the room." My breath caught. He is the reason I became a better listener, a better friend, a better man. He reminds me every day that kindness matters even when nobody is watching. The crowd slowly grew quiet. Noah stepped down from the stage instead of pointing from a distance. He walked through the audience one row at a time until he stopped directly in front of me. "Ethan," he said, smiling with that familiar warmth that had quietly followed me through 8 years of my life. "Would you come up here with me?" Tyler nudged my shoulder so hard I nearly dropped my donut. "Go," he whispered. Somehow my legs remembered how to work. I followed Noah back to the stage while hundreds of students clapped around us. Once we reached the center, he turned toward me instead of the audience. "A month ago," he said quietly enough that only the front rows could hear, "I thought I needed a game to justify choosing you." He shook his head with a small laugh. I was wrong. He reached for my hand, giving me every chance to step away if I wanted. I did not. Our fingers fit together as naturally as they always had. "There is no dare anymore," he continued. "There are no excuses left. I am choosing you because it has always been you." My eyes stung with happy tears that I refused to call tears because Tyler would never let me forget it. I smiled anyway. "You know," I said, my voice trembling with laughter, "you could have saved yourself a month of planning if you had just told me the truth." Noah laughed. "Probably. Good thing I like stubborn people." The crowd erupted into cheers as I squeezed his hand a little tighter. No dramatic fireworks filled the sky. No perfect movie soundtrack suddenly began to play. There was only the sound of people celebrating around us, warm lights glowing above our heads, and the quiet certainty that the person who had spent years choosing me had finally given me the chance to choose him back. Looking back now, I still smile whenever someone asks how our story began. Most people expect a grand romance or a life-changing coincidence. The truth is much simpler. Love did not start the day one of us finally spoke. It started with countless quiet choices made long before either of us had the courage to give those choices a name.